All right, guys, welcome to Shifted Opinions. We have a great show ahead of you. We're going to be talking about some upcoming adventures we've all taken. I was on the Hill Country Rally in Kerrville, Texas. Dave Van Epps is with us from Sunderworks, as well as Casey Parkin of Group C Curation. They were both at Amelia Island. There was beverages consumed, miles driven, debauchery.
All of it.
Casey
On your
won't let
side
us
too,
show
right,
some of the
Paul?
pictures, but man, the pictures I was seeing of you two guys having fun, I was a little, just a little FOMO. So anyway, let's hop into it. So Dave, Casey, I've never been to Amelia Island. We have questions that we're going to get to today from listeners who also have never been to Amelia Island. What the heck is it? Is it Pebble Beach? Is it something different? What is it? Casey.
I've never been to Pebble Beach, so I can't comment. I can tell you the the aspects of it that I really enjoyed. I was going down there first and foremost to support a client that was selling a car with the Broad Arrow team. The car is the one behind me. It is a beautiful 1965 911 that won its class at Daytona in
Ooh, I love that car.
1967. Really cool. Unfortunately, I never got to drive it, but it was interesting. I've never seen a large, well, actually, I went to Air Water where Broad Arrow did something there, but I'd never seen something like this where I was able to, kind of be in the midst of everything. I saw that $16 million Enzo cell and a number of other things. Um, I would be honest with you and tell you that it's not my space. I'm not a huge, big crowd person. So certainly watching it was cool and getting that experience was nice. That was the primary reason that I was there. Secondarily, really wanted to go to Radwood, which was awesome. I'd never been to one before. It was great. Dave actually had a car that he was showing there, which was cool. I met saw a bunch of the guys from Sonderworks. The car behind Dave, which is affectionately known as Junebug. That was my loaner vehicle for part of the visit. That is a car that was built by Harper Porsche of
You know, I
Platica fame. Yep,
that was at Ice Race, and I
it
think it did really
was.
Yep.
well. Was Lee Keen driving it?
Lee Keen
Yes,
did
he
drive it,
was.
and believe it or not, it was still on studded snow tires when I was driving it, and had all of the dirt from Ice Race. So probably one of the most rowdy cars that I've ever driven with an interior in it. Individual throttle bodies, really, really hot 3.8 liter. Basically, it's an RS blown out to even more exciting. Just a real good ripper. Great experience with that. And thank you to the Harper Porsche team for taking care of me there. Dave, what feedback did you, I mean, because you were there not only as you were there also as an exhibitor showing off the Sonderworks wares. I know at Works
Sure.
Reunion. What did you think?
Well, just to back up just a minute a bit, Amelia Island is a long time concours, been going on for 25 plus years down at Amelia Island. It is in that vein of all the high-end shows, right? It's Pebble Beach and it's Connecticut and it's, all of the high-end stuff that goes on. And it's one of the three or four big shows for the collector world every year. Along with it, though, Porsche does an event on the Friday ahead of the show called Works Reunion, and they do one in Monterey too that they tag on to Monterey Car Week as well. So you've got probably 1,000 Porsches that come and inhabit this small island, and basically it's a car enthusiast dream. Every corner you're walking around all weekend long, every restaurant you go to, every restaurant, every bar, every event has got some car tie-in. So we were there for Works Reunion on the Friday. We had a wonderful time. We were showing obviously the car we just finished. This car I'll put up behind me now. We actually kind of had two cars. So this is the fantastic build that we just completed for Alex Bowman. This car is a beast. He came yesterday and drove it. We actually had the car back after the show. He came by to try to drive it and managed to, by really jumping on the throttle, managed to break the right axle immediately on the car. So we know we've got a little power there, and we got plenty of traction. So we've got
What
that all back together.
what
Everything's good, and he drove it.
what do they say, Dave? Like there's enough power when there's burnout marks all the way down the straightaway through turn one, and
Yeah, well, in this case, it wouldn't have been because he had to coax it back. Thank God it's a limited slip diff, but the right axle broke on the car. So fortunately, it was just a little bit down the road here at Sunderworks, and
well, it's
so
because you put too much power in it.
well, that's the
It
key,
overpowered
and
it.
yeah, same car. I would say that entire weekend, the weather could not have been better. The weather was phenomenal. It was really, really a wonderful event. Casey's June bug here that he had got to drive right behind it. You can see over my head here if you're watching on YouTube is one of my service manager's car. This is Rob Adams's car, and this is magenta. I kind of call it the T-Mobile special here, but it's a car that he built and displayed at Radwood as well. Terrific car. That darn color just gets so much attention no matter what you do. The
And
day before at Works Reunion, this was um, Bruce Canepa's car that he brought to Works Reunion, a 959 that has had the Canepa treatment. And this thing is just amazing. You
I
know,
mean, it
three,
looks cool in Ruby Stone, but full cocaine white. For
oh,
those
that
not
is,
watching, the entire interior, steering wheel, dash, I'm assuming headliner, seats,
oh,
carpet
yeah.
is like
I,
cocaine white. The wheels are
I have a
cocaine
picture of
white.
that somewhere as well. It's amazing. It's amazing, Paul. I
It,
mean, not a
I
car you're going
mean,
to get into and drive to hill country, that's for sure. And you better be wearing a hazmat suit when you get in it. Otherwise, you're going to get your,
oh my gosh.
imagine the blue jeans mark transferring over to the white leather in this car. That would be
Uh,
a major no-no. But that was quite a nice car that Bruce brought for the event as well. Um, Another nice build that was there. This is a friend of mine and some guys down in Tennessee. The company's called Umlaut, and this was a similar build. They were parked directly next to us at the event. This is a very nice build, and
describe the car that we're
no,
seeing.
it's a beautiful. It's I should ask. The car is called Crystal, and the car is crystal blue. It actually started life as a long hood, and obviously the motor in it is amazing. Interior is
So
fantastic,
it
but
looks
it,
like an RSR
yep,
Singer. I hate to see.
yeah,
I saw him
yeah,
bring a
but
trailer. I hate that Singer style, but it's the best way to
yep,
describe it. A
yeah, it's in that
Singer-esque
same
build,
vein. Yep,
RSR in
yep,
crystal blue, which might have been a
which was the
914
original
color.
color of the car. So one of just a handful of these cars built, but it's a factory color, and they restored that, or not restored, but built this car.
What are the
And
wheels?
God, I think they're HRE wheels.
I mean, they look
I'm
from this weird
99% sure.
angle, they almost look like
Yeah,
Ferrari five-spoke, like
yeah.
chromadoras,
It's a good
almost.
looking wheel though, really good looking wheel on this car. Unfortunately, we only had eight cars in our class for the judging, and he won with this car, which was phenomenal. A great build. And
Were you a
Umlaut seems
judge?
to be. No,
Were you
I was
guys,
not a judge.
Casey?
No,
I thought I saw you crawling around a car. You were a judge?
Nah, man.
Were-
he's
No,
just
Okay, there's that picture
no.
judgmental.
where you were. There's a picture where you were crawling around the car, and I was like, I wonder if he's judging that
Oh no,
car.
I was just looking at Dave's interior, I think. I think that's what that picture was. Yeah.
And
Yes.
just for a sec, can I go back to? I had no idea you were involved with the 65 because of the cars at the auction, which we never really got into, and we'll get back to Dave the Interior. But
Oh, no worries.
we kind of went by it. That 65 911 that was at the auction, I was intrigued by that. And for those who don't know, 65 911s have this. When I first started selling Porsches, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, 65 911s had this weird spot. This is before they were blown up and being collector cars because it was this one cheat code where you could get a 911. 65 was the limit for the class of racing. And basically, everything it competed against, it could win. You couldn't really get a 64 911 because they were already too valuable and too rare. But 65 911s, all it had to be was a build year of 65, which there was, I don't know, a few thousand cars probably. And unfortunately, now they're too valuable. But I remember seeing videos, early YouTube videos of 65 911s just hanging it out through En Rouge at Spa. and they were the last, I think, of the 911 gentleman car, drive to the racetrack, beat the crap out of it, win a trophy, and drive home. And that car basically, when you looked, I think I've seen that car before. It has a regular-ish interior. It's not like
Mhm.
a gutted race car. It's got a dash. It's got all 5 gauges. It's got a seat. I think it's got carpet, maybe a headliner. I don't know.
Does. I mean,
Um,
it's a full interior car. It's got a
it,
roll hoop in the back of it.
it's it's on my
But
favorite
it's pretty
wheels.
awesome.
Those are
Yeah,
my
torque
favorite
thrusts
show
are great.
wheels. Yeah, they're torque
Um,
thrust magnesium wheels. But what's the deal
so,
with that car?
so,
Like, what did
so
it sell
the
for? All that.
I think with fees it was like 470, which I still think is a huge value for the pedigree of the car. The team at Broad Arrow did an amazing job representing it. Really, really great. I thought it was an awesome car. It's one of the scariest rides I've ever been in a street car. I never drove it, unfortunately, but the prior owner of the car who consigned it to the auction, did take me for a ride in it. And let's just say he's a very good driver. And he whipped me around in it on public roads, of course, going the speed limit. But
In
of course, in a
Mexico.
car like that,
Of course, of
no,
course.
we were going the speed limit. Just got to the speed limit quickly, but it's a really awesome thing, and I'm honestly sad to see it go. The gentleman that owns it loves race cars, loves really cool stuff. I've showed you guys some of his stuff before, like that Cadillac DPI car, if you recall that. Same owner, just a really great guy that I sold Porsches to a long time ago, and I knew that he was selling this down there, and I wanted to see how that worked.
Do you know who the new owner is and what their plans with it are?
Don't I
I mean,
don't.
I hope it shows
It's
up
a
on a racetrack.
So the coolest thing about this car, which makes it a little scary, is that it still has the original engine. And for
Wow.
a period race car, engine and transmission. So it's all, I mean, if you were to do that with this car, I'd almost think that you would want to buy another motor and put it in the
Yeah.
car, because putting a rod through the side of a early sandcast, 2-liter motor is not a good idea, especially when it's the original one. So I think that you would have to do that. I think that's the gentleman that owned the car. I mean, he has pictures of him driving it around like on the walls of Daytona, or the banking rather. So I think that was part of his motivation for possibly moving along from it, just because he felt that he could not treat it as he liked. But he's got some really amazing stuff that he still pedals a lot, which is cool. So, but yeah,
That
other
was my
than,
favorite car at the auction. I was, oof.
yeah, it's a
There's
ripper
nothing
for
like a
sure.
vintage race car with history. And you said it won its class at Daytona.
67. Yeah, and I think placed
Damn.
second at Sebring in 69 as well. So it had a lot
Who
of history.
notable drivers that were
I
winning?
don't believe it was all privateer stuff. Yeah. Very,
Wow.
very cool though. No, my other favorite car for Paul is a 968 with speed lines, but we'll just skip that.
Mm,
But I
Well,
love
the,
seeing
mm.
this. Yep.
wait.
This
That
Do we
was
know
that
what
was
the
in Radwood.
968 Turbo S sold for? Because
didn't sell.
what did it bid to? Do you know?
Don't know. I know that
Because
Ray sold the Turbo RS for 700 plus fees.
Because
Um,
if that Zermatt Silver a 968 Turbo S, which they made 10 or 11 of, if that sold, the buyer would have been the second time owning it, which meant I would get a very good chance of selling a blood orange 968 Turbo S, which more
might
importantly
still.
means I would get, well, he did promise me a drive in it. And I said I didn't want to drive it until I felt confident. And I'm feeling confident. I could
Sure.
drive it now. So, I mean,
Five thousand miles later, you're feeling confident,
I'm
Paul.
feeling exactly. But, okay. So you have a CLK GTR, another Halo car of mine.
Yeah, that was out in front of the Concours. Me and a couple of buddies confidenced ourselves into the Concours. It was pretty cool. I would tell you that Radwood to me,
What's the trick on that? What was the trick on that, Casey?
you just
Alcohol.
act, you just actually completely sober, maybe one beer, because we came from Radwood. Before then, I was hanging out with Dave. But anyway, I would tell you that the Concours was cool, but Radwood was by far the coolest thing at the whole event. I liked Works Reunion a lot, but Radwood just, golly, it was awesome. It was, they had so much cool stuff there, and it wasn't. I think I talked to Art for a while. He said that it wasn't a full event. It was kind of just like a pop up that they did in kind of collaboration with the rest of the Concours, but it was awesome. It was
And
really cool.
is it true they're taking our idea of emo wood and emo era? They're
They
calling it
should.
something a little better.
No, they're calling it something silly. They're calling it millennia or something like that, right? That's the
Did
signs
you
that
get
they had up.
any scoop on that?
They were trying to tease it. So on one of the greens, like the green that was on the fairway where Radwood was, they had six or eight cars that were there from this 2000 plus era, all kind of teasing it. And then they had a stanchion up there that said millennia. So they're not as cool as us. We think emo would be way better, but we'll let it slide. Haggerty obviously owns it all now, right? So and Haggerty's a big player in all these things. So Haggerty owns the Amelia. So they own the show. Broad Arrow is owned by Amelia. They put on the primary auction at this point, and now some of the other guys have moved. You know, the other auction houses have either uh, pulled up and not doing as big an event, or they've moved completely off of that weekend because they can't get in there. They don't have the space for
Well,
that weekend.
they
But there
moved
was a
to
couple of good
Moda.
auctions.
They moved to
Yep,
Moda,
they were
which
down there.
after I had a one of our old co-hosts, Casey, Greg Stanley. I don't know if any of you talked to him, but he
Yeah,
works
sure.
for RM, and I talked to him yesterday about Moda. He was that the day he had the day off, but he was volunteering. And so far, the inside scoop I heard from people, it was a shit show. It was of if you remember the Barrett Jackson Scottsdale wind auction that blew down tents, that basically took Russo and Steele completely out of business. Do you remember that? It was like
Mm-mm.
10 years ago, huge windstorms. And if you've been to Scottsdale auctions, they rely on these massive tents, like these giant wedding tents, that are seriously anchored, kind of like circus tents. And they had come in unanchored, and those poles just whipped around and destroyed cars. And Russo and Steele had the most damage. And it literally, I was talking to Greg about it, and they that literally put Russo and Steele out of business.
Mm.
And I would love to learn more about what happened because it was the week after Amelia. I think Moda is a week after. And for those who you haven't seen it, it was a flood. There was a monsoon
Yeah.
that came through very, very fast. And, I wonder how many cars are going to be lost. We talked about it. Some of them are what we call immortal cars, like a McLaren F1. It will always be rebuilt. But what about, a oh gosh, a 300, $400,000 cool hot rod build, like something you would build, Dave.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
that car is not going to get rebuilt. It's going to be gone, and they'll get
Yeah, I
money.
mean,
They'll go build
it
another
got
one.
flooded on the fairway, right? I mean, that's kind of what happened. I mean,
Yeah,
so
if you
much rain came so fast that the fairways just flooded, and you were watching videos of cars driving through
yep,
water that was up to the side of the doors, and it was insane.
sinking
The
into the
videos.
fair, sinking into the grass.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was horrible. I'm glad you guys had a better experience. Just Dave, because I love interiors. It's one of my favorite parts of cars. And I think people spend too much time on the outside and not enough on the inside, which is funny because that's where you spend all your time. And why I'm restoring my 928 interior. But is that the interior of which car? The
Yeah,
hot rod build?
this is a couple different pictures of that interior again. This car just was just it's a stellar piece. It really is. I mean,
Look at that
it came out
RoboCop
just
shifter.
beautifully.
That
Yeah, no,
RoboCop.
that's C what is that called? The CSA, I think, is the shifter. It's fantastic. I mean, it's an amazingly good shifter. And I love Paul, just like you. I love where that is positioned next to the wheel. It's just high enough that it really is terrific to drive this car. And I got a great opportunity. I was fortunate enough, I was the guy driving it around all over the island as we were moving it from place to place and driving it. And I was having a ball. I mean, this car is absolutely insane. It really is fantastic. So we're very happy to have it there. I think we got we won some, minor award for something over at Radwood and so on, and that was cool. But
Good for you.
um, great car. Alex Bowman, super happy with the car. Now, this car is also going to be, and I'll put up another picture of it here while we're all talking about it. The next super cool event coming up here in the spring is going to be here in Charlotte. And if either of you are in the area for this weekend, the Heritage Invitational is the new event. Haggerty also heavily involved in this, but the Heritage Invitational is being held at what's called 10 Tenths Motor Club out at um, out of the Speedway here, and that is all owned by Hendrick, the Hendrick Group, and the Smith Group. And the venue is fantastic. It's a 2 mile oval. It's not really an oval. It's a a typical kind of just road course, 2 mile. This event is just high end cars. Look it up. I really recommend anybody that's listening and might be even remotely in the area. I'm reasonably sure that within the next 2 or 3 years, this is going to be a premier event. Last year, when I went, we had a big who's who of people from all over the country that came in. Bruce Canepa was in, and Wayne Carini, and I'm pretty sure that
Dave
um,
Van Epps, he was there.
well, yeah, well, Dave Van Epps, of course, will be there. Yes, and he'll do his best to bring a
Yeah,
T-shirt or something. But who is it? Smoking Tire is
Matt
doing.
Farah. Yeah,
They're
Matt
gonna,
Farah's going to have
yeah, they're
a
doing the show from
podcast
there. Matt Farah.
recording show. Yeah. Are you going to be a guest on there to represent Shifted Opinions?
Well, listen, I'll have to talk to Matt and see if I can horn my way in, but I'm going to be there, and we're showing Bowman's car at that event. It got accepted into the event, and so we'll have that there. But Radwood is going to happen at the same time, so it's there at this same event. Again, Haggerty very much involved in it, and it'll be a good size Radwood, I think, as well. So I'm kind of excited. We'll have several cars
Yep.
there. It's a 3 or 4 day event. They've got a pro-am, a driving pro-am with a lot of NASCAR drivers. They're going to be driving old IROC cars for a Friday afternoon event. And then the main event is on Saturday. And this is in April. And,
And this is not a
look, while somebody
Porsche.
else is talking,
This is not a Porsche event. It's just a
exclusive. No, no, lots of amazingly cool cars. Just like it's really like another one of the Amelia Island or Pebble Beach type events, but being
wow.
held at 10 tenths. Really
That's
cool.
amazing.
Super cool.
And you've got Platica coming up, which we'll have the host Shannon Harper talking to us in a couple weeks about that. Just kind of moving things along.
Can I
And
self
I always
promote for
find
1 minute before
yeah,
we
yeah,
get
yeah.
to
Go
you,
ahead.
Paul?
Yeah.
We talked about, I had a car on Bring a Trailer a couple of weeks ago, this beautiful 2019 GTS Coupe stick. Knocked it out of the park. Just was stoked at the result. Client was as well.
What did it sell
This
for?
one went 145 plus fees, which is
And it was a
10,000 over the original window sticker.
and it was a
22,000
991
mile .2 stick GTS. Yeah, 10 grand over sticker, which
in
is
black.
wild.
In black. Not like crazy spec, but just like a
All the
good,
right stuff
but
with a good
it was a
owner.
7-speed manual, correct?
Yep. Yep.
My gosh. I mean, if Ferrari doesn't hear the message that people want not lap times but experience with a manual, I mean, they are nuts that they're not building a manual yet. Absolutely. All the top tier manufacturers. I mean, BMW should be making more. I mean, what is it left? BMW and Porsche are the only manual high-end sports type delivery cars.
I think
McLaren
so.
doesn't. Lotus is I still think right now the Lotus Emira is the killer buy. And in like 5 years, boy, those are going to be a hell of a buy. Those are
Yeah.
Evora GTs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a
In
pretty
terms of that
proud.
class.
This one's
Mhm.
coming up next. Actually, this one is live right now. It's a
Our favorite.
E92 M3, 15-year owned car. A guy bought it with 1,000 miles on it in 2011. It's got 26,000 miles on it now. Stick shift competition, white over red, pretty much checks all the
Ooh,
boxes. And Yuri must have
nice.
listened to the last podcast because you can see my 911 is on four wheels and it is sitting
Woohoo.
about 3/4 of an inch lower. So he said that
Oh,
he's
look
not
at you.
snugging down all of the suspension parts until I'm there because he knows I'm going to change my mind. So,
No, it looks great. I thought it was one of your clients, like 964
Me
RS.
too.
I
nope,
didn't even
Me
nope.
realize it
too.
was yours.
Yeah. So
But
it's, I
I will
think we're
tell
going
you
to,
that It's obviously going to settle a little bit before you drive it,
Mhm.
probably, if he just literally put it down and hasn't put any miles on it. But I think that's a
Yes,
great
so
looking stance on that car.
I think maybe lowering the back by maybe an eighth or a quarter of an inch, just a little bit more to match the front, but it's really, really close. He did a great job.
I
So anyway,
I
Yuri, you're
personally
not listening.
I wouldn't lower it the back. And the reason why is by the time you put you in the car and you're going somewhere and you put some luggage, I think it'll kind of work out.
All right.
You're
Well,
saying you
that's
wouldn't
what.
lower the back, Paul.
I mean, I'm for and Dave, you know this. People ask me all the time about ride height. I
Hmm.
just go with the factory. Rest of World factory is 25 inches if you measure from the ground through the center of the wheel to the edge of the lip of the fender well. 25 inches for the rear, 25 and a half for the front. That's generally for all air-cooled cars. And then US height is about an inch higher, which, by the way, my green rally car is, believe it or not, US ride height. And actually, we raised the whole car a quarter inch more than that, Casey, because we always have 150 pounds worth of crap in the front, our luggage. And so when you do it, like look at us at speed accelerating. I mean, I think by the time we do that, we're at rest of world height.
Why do you have
So,
skis on the top of your car?
because you know what? One day I'll take up the hobby.
And you never know where
Wait,
you
is
might
that
be.
is that from last week?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So you
from
went,
last week.
they've snow in Texas, or
You
there's
know,
water skis?
I know there's no such thing as global warming, but you never know. There's ski. Here's for those who ask why. By the way, this is the first time. Normally, it's just crap on the roof, and my wife makes fun of me for not having anything practical because I've got an aluminum box up there that's like it's a 50s mail delivery box, airmail that has nothing in it. I have these wooden skis with bamboo ski poles that obviously you're not going to use because you'll either get tetanus or splinters or both. And then I had a studded snow tire with an empty Sunoco marine fuel can. Now, you'll be proud of me. This trip, I ditched the studded snow tire. I put an extra 7-inch wheel in the front with a brand new Michelin tire with a 1.5 gallons of real fuel. It was hard to find a gas tank that could lay on its side and not spill, and it fit in there. Um, and so I am making it functional. But my original idea when I did this was one, if you ever look at the old pictures of short wheelbase people, short wheelbase 911s and back in the day, that was their one car. They would go do weekend hill climbs with it, they'd drive to work, and they always looked outfitted for adventure. And the other thing was, I thought if I made this car look like the Stuttgart version of the Beverly Hills Clampets and just sort of homeless and crappy, they wouldn't realize how fast I was actually going. They would look at their radar gun, they'd look at the car, they'd hit the radar gun a few times and go, "That's impossible." And so, but by the way, that the latter part of that never really worked. I still got the ticket. No
All
tickets
right.
this
Did
time.
you get a ticket? Did you get a
No,
ticket on this trip?
no,
So,
Okay, well, that's good.
yeah.
So let's
Paul,
hear
good
all
good
about it. Come on.
transition. Yeah, tell us about it.
so
Yes.
there was one warning, and the funniest thing is the guy who got the warning is in a 912, Mike Nesdale. He's listening. He has been on several of our rallies, pulled over, got warnings because he never did anything wrong. He was just a bystander. And my argument is he was the slowest so they could catch him easiest. But no, we were pulling into the town of Marfa, Texas, which is a artsy town if you've been there, famous for the Prada store in the middle of nowhere, the fake Prada store. And he made, I guess, an illegal turn into the gas station, which borderline. The sheriff pulls him over. He gets out of it because I think the big reason was she didn't believe that his VIN was a 10-digit VIN. She's like, "Well, I got to fill in 17 spaces on my computer for the VIN." And he's like, "This is the VIN." He shows her the registration. She gets out of the car. He shows her all the VIN things. She calls his boss. I'm probably hacking the story up, but the bottom line was he couldn't get a ticket because they didn't know how to fill out the form electronically with his 10-digit VIN or 6-digit VIN or whatever it was.
Well, I
So,
like to hear that. It means I'm going to drive my 80 or older car
yeah.
a lot more, apparently, right? Because that's where the 10-digit VIN clicked over,
So,
I think.
this journey, this is our 8th year going to Hill Country Rally. And for those who don't know what it is, we'll have in the show notes links to the Hill Country Rally. I generally don't like single mark rallies because I think it just gets a little bit nerdy, and I love going on rallies with a variety of cars. This isn't just a single mark rally. It is the nerdiest of rallies. It is 89 and older air cooled torsion bar only rallies. That's 356s, 914s, and 911s, and no 964s or newer. No 928s, 924s, 944s, and they list a whole list of things that it's not allowed. Um, there, this is my eighth year going. The first year I went in 2017, I want to say there was probably 150 cars from mostly the southern part of the U.S. And there's a whole group that come up from Monterrey, Mexico, which is about 10 hours away, 5 hours away. This year they sold out the entire hotel. There was over 360 of these cars, over 600 people. It's a 2 day event, Friday and Saturday. They give you maps of these great roads through the hill country part of Texas. And then there's another part that goes through Fredericksburg and that area. It's beautiful driving, very different. Um, but I would say I keep going back every year, and it sounds cliche and corny because of the people and the parking lot. And,
Any pictures of the parking lot?
I don't know if I have pictures of us hanging out in water crossings.
Oh, that's
Water.
good. That's even
Um,
better, right?
but the thing about it is I've been doing these rally driving events for 25 years, going back to probably the first one was in 2002, going to our group. And it just blew my mind from driving the way we did on the back roads around old cars, hanging out in the parking lot. It just felt like debauchery and illegal and fun, and it wasn't, or maybe it was a little. And and you got the craving for it. It was an escapism from reality, and it made these old cars completely relevant. And what happened was, when I people have asked me, and there's some questions like, why do the Hill Country Rally? Well, in 2017, I was looking for a harder drug. I had done Target Californias and Iron Bottom rallies and Snowball, and I've done all these different kinds of rallies. And I was looking for, Target Baja, and I just wanted to go experience different roads, different people, go further. And Jeff Trask, who sadly passed away of cancer in 2018, he had been bugging me for years to drive out to Texas with him and do the Hill Country Rally. And I'm like, that just seems like, the juice isn't worth the squeeze kind of thing. And the year I went, he was already, very ill with cancer. He couldn't make it, and I gave him a bunch of shit for that. I would have loved to have gone out with him for that. And there's an award at Hill Country Rally called the Jeff Trask Spirit Award, because he is sort of the ethos of making the journey. So the first year, my dad and I drove out by ourselves, and it was just me and him. We tried to pick some back roads, but we basically left on a Tuesday, got there on Thursday. Well, this year, fast forward, we had 22 cars join us. We had to go get Haggerty insurance for this event. It was that bad. We had over 30 people. The journey, we took what would have been
Look at that.
1,200 miles going from Orange County to Texas on just the freeway. We made it over 1,900 miles, and we were only on the 10 freeway for 100 miles of that 1,900. We started technically in El Centro, California. The photo behind me is Van Horn, Texas, a great hotel. It's a vintage hotel. Can't remember the name of it. Sorry about that. It'll be in the notes, but that was El, Van Horn, Texas has a weird time zone. They're central time, but they should be in mountain time. So that photo was taken at 8 in the morning, and it's still dark out, and it's the moon is up. And we lined up some of the cars. Some of them had already went to Marfa. And during that trip, I crossed over just as we got to the Hill Country Rally, 375,000 miles. And for those who asked, original motor, never opened. I would say everything around and about that motor has been replaced multiple times. We've done a leak down test. The results were unacceptable for bring a trailer, but just fine for the mechanic. I think it was like 9 to 10% on 5 cylinders, 17% on one cylinder. Doesn't leak a drop. We ended up doing 2,500 miles, and I burned through 3 quarts of oil, which for a 375,000 mile motor. And by the way, on the freeway with the roof rack, there was one stretch I was allegedly going 105 miles an hour um, in Texas for an hour to catch up with the guys that I was supposed to be leading. I caught
And it
up
was
to
on
them.
one long straight road, right?
There's
Like
one long
one
straight
long, you were
road.
just
It's
going.
between Marfa, Marathon, Texas, all the way to Comstock. You can look it up on a map. It runs between the Mexico border and the 10. And it is a straight 2-lane road with hills. Had the radar on. My dad's checking ways. We're like, we feel like we're cannonballers. And I'm like, I'm going to catch these guys. Well, I catch them within maybe a minute of, and we have ways going. So guys ahead of us saying, hey, we call them cops, Camaros. There's Camaros in Comstock. And I catch up to the tail end of them just as like 4 or 5 Camaros come at us, full radar, instant on. And I'm like, guys, what the hell? They were going 95 the whole way. It took me an
Ooh,
hour to catch these guys. And so that route, I
Allegedly.
allegedly, I only got 14 miles to the gallon on that segment, but I averaged over the whole
it
trip
was worth it.
17 miles to the gallon. So, um,
And so you got good fuel mileage as well. Good to know.
great fuel mileage. In the end, we had some carnage on the way there. Two of the cars had fresh rebuilt motors. One of them did great. One of them basically they were glad they were on a trailer home. We ended up trailering back 8 cars pre-planned. I This is the first time I've trailered home. I didn't drive home because I had just at that point done 5,000 miles in 3 weeks between snowball or ice races and that. So I was pretty tired. But once you got to the hill country, you're reinvigorated.
Oh, yes.
We just and Dave knows. Dave's been Casey. You can't
You
go
got to
with a
come.
964, but you can go with your
No.
914.
Yep.
So
Yeah, that'll run really well. Yep.
there was actually
So,
quite a few 914s. Um,
yep.
in some,
We have one here right now, Paul. We have one of the Hill Country Rally 914s here in the shop right now. Mike, you might have met him, although there was 300 plus people there. Mike was driving a blue 75,
yep,
has a had a like a Pegasus on the side of it, some whatever. But he got almost all the way home to Virginia driving back from Hill Country Rally, and he broke down about an hour and a half outside of the Charlotte area. So he had the car towed here. He is here right now waiting for us to try to get his car back on the road. We had to wait for a part that we had to go to another guy to pick up, but his car his car made a lot of miles on a 914, and he almost made it home, but it's
there
here.
was. I think of our group, about half of them had, or maybe a little less than half had no problems. And knock on wood, our green Tortuga. The only issue I had was if you watched my Instagram, the headlights were flashing on and off. I had upgraded all the fuse panel to the small blade. Just those
Yep.
little round ceramics just don't make
Classic
rally life.
retrofit makes that kit, I think. Yep.
Yep, it's a really good kit. And we're sitting there
Yep.
trying to figure it out. And I'm glad we spent the time because my dad said, well, we're not going to be driving at night much, just the early morning, so who cares? But when we went and looked into it further, it turned out my friend Joe, who's the least mechanical person, he sits there looking, he's like, what about the screw holding the fuse panel to the car? And sure enough, there's three big Phillips head screws. I used like the stupidest, cheesy, like my first screwdriver that's in like, and I just sort of did it. They were 2 threads away from falling off. And if that thing had fallen off, and the reason I
Well, that's
put
the
this
ground, right?
picture, it
Yeah.
was the ground. Who knows what the repercussions? And this will be a teaser for the next episode. But this red 71 Targa, we have now nicknamed El Fuego. Um, we are selling it, and on a test drive, it caught on fire. And
Oh,
we are going to
yes.
do an episode about this because our friend Rob with Element Fire Extinguishers will come on the show because his fire extinguisher seriously saved my ass. But for me, and a bunch of people have asked me about the hill country. God, it's the same roads. We do the longest possible road. Everyone's like, why are you going? We went down, basically back down towards Mexico. This is Brackettsville, Texas. It's right near the border. And we went there because every year for the last, I think, of the 8 years, 7 times, one time they were closed, my dad and I take this picture in front of Ziggy's barbecue. And it's funny to see the picture because over the years, he's gotten skinnier and I've gotten fatter. Which, but you know what's funny is the car just looks consistently dirty and shitty, which is great. It does, it's ageless.
A little more patina on the front, a few more rock chips, but there she be.
Yeah, and for me, this was we every year we stop at this watering hole. It's the Nueces River. It's very beautiful. There is a walkway you can see us standing on that's super mossy and slippery. And we go out there, set up our chairs, have a beer. It's underneath a freeway overpass. It feels very um Chris Farley, in a van down by the river, if you know what I mean, under an overpass. It's pretty trashy. But
Just what you want to be doing, walking around on slippery stuff with a new hip.
I know, and I had a lot of support. But if you look behind me, there's waterfalls. And
Yep.
and every year we stop there. This year, I said, screw it, I'm swimming. I swam from that little isle peninsula all the way to the waterfall, went under the waterfall and swam back. And then I don't have a picture of it, but the next day we went to the Guadalupe River, which was even wider. It's probably 250 yards across. I swam to one shore and back. And if you're for those who don't remember, the Guadalupe River in Kerrville was what the river that flooded. That sadly was a tragic event. We drove right through the heart of where that was, and it was sobering. And you sit there and you're reminded that like we get to do this. I mean, one of the comments I had in a question was from Michelle Cowell, and and she echoes a lot of what I was feeling because her and her husband John Cowell, their car basically didn't quite make the rally to the rally. It died on the third day, and it had to get towed to San Antonio, had to get fixed. They missed Friday's drive. They actually made it for Saturday's drive. They kind of limped to the end. They're glad they're towing it back. Um, but John and Michelle Cowell, their house was part of the victim of the Palisades fire. And they were out of town. So there's a lot lost. I mean, imagine not being able to even go and pull stuff out. You were just out of town. You see it happening on the news. Um, they had to get another place to live. They have kids. It's just your worst nightmare. And this last year has just been this saga. This is their first kind of adventure. I don't think they've ever done a rally, let alone anything like this. And Michelle Cowell said, focus and friendship were her two takeaways. Friendships were made that will go way beyond the rally. Focus, challenge, and bonds with new friends. And for Dave, I know who's been on rallies, and I think, Casey, you can relate to this. When you have a distraction, like something that requires, when you're driving, all of your focus, you can't think about the shit. You can't think about what's happening now, yesterday, the day before. All you can think about is driving. And in every stop, you don't have reception. You can't get interrupted by life. And she said we had so many laughs. She was giggling the whole time, even though the car had to be push started everywhere we got. When you know how it is, your starter goes, you find a place to park where you can bump start. We would find, there was two of them, her and them and Will, their cars. We were always looking for push start hill whenever we stopped. And, here's someone who, she has a 912 of her own. They went in a 911 SC, brand new motor, starter issues, all wheel bearing, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And they hung in and they made it through the rally. They didn't give up. They rented a Jeep for the day that their car was down and drove the route. And, and just listening to her, she left me a really lovely 4-minute message, which reminded me, you know, why we do these things, and for me, um, you know, ice race was different. That was like, can I make it there in the easiest way to drive a manual, which was my easiest manual to drive, my 944, just taking freeways, going with a friend who could drive with me. And there was nothing dynamic about that experience. It was just the endurance of it. And I didn't say anything to anyone, but I knew that if that didn't work, I was going to have to figure out something 5 days later when I got back for Hill Country. Because now I'm going to be driving my green car is one of the hardest cars for me to drive physically to, and it's not the clutch is heavy, but it's getting my foot from a non-clutch position to to a way to operate the clutch and to be able to not, you don't think about driving a manual, just do it. Now I have to think about, okay, I've got to flex my quad and my, hip flexor and do all these different things to get my leg to do what it wants to do with a pillow, with like a foam pad to hold my leg in position. And I'm going to do that for 1900 miles and then another 600 miles once I'm there driving. You've driven those roads, Dave. They're, especially the
Yep.
Fredericksburg roads. You are second gear, third gear, second gear, third gear. It is, a
Yep.
thousand shifts. And when I got done with ice race, I was like 90% confident. But there was a part of me going like, and my dad's 82 and he offered to drive, but the passenger seat kind of sucks in an 86 911 because there's not enough room for me to stretch my feet out. I mean, Casey, you would look like a freaking praying mantis all folded up. There's no way. And the driver's seat, you can kind of squish your foot back. So, first part of the reason we did a southern route is a little less technical. But, for me, each day finishing and not being tired in a good way and not like, am I hurting myself? And it was such a victory to know that like, I can have my normal life ish back. Like, 7 months ago, I didn't know if I get to drive a manual, let alone even sit in a one doctor said you're never getting in a Porsche again. I mean, imagine that. Another
Yeah.
doctor says driving a manual transmission, I don't know, and
But you found the
no,
third doctor, and that was the key.
no, that was a second doctor said, I don't know. He
Okay.
just said, I
They put you
strongly
back together.
disagree.
You're here
Yeah,
you go.
he said, I strongly disagree with the first doctor. And so it just, even though, yes, I'm positive, but I'm a human, you sit there in the back of your mind going, like, this is such a big part of my life. And I've watched people who were pro level skiers have to just no more of that life. Think about, and it's not just my life, it's my business. How do I not test drive cars in a way that I can like truly understand, is it a good car? Is it a bad car? What does it need? And so that is all. So for me, Hill Country was my rocky moment of running up the stairs and knowing that like I may not be as graceful as I was, but I can still enjoy this passion, which was for me, everything. And I'm excited that if I just keep moving forward. So Hill Country was, for those who haven't gone, yes, you have to have the right car for it. But if you can do it, you should do it. Find a way to go. Because of all the different rallies I do, these, it's probably fighting words, are probably as a whole the best people I enjoy spending time with. I have never seen so many people that are so kind and friendly and generous and helpful. And there is no hierarchy, there's no cliques, there's no groupings. It is the biggest family I have ever seen. And when I was sick, I got the most support from them. And by the way, as the final cap of our Hill Country Rally event, we're going to have at our local Cars and Coffee, they have a special Cars and Coffee and a special display. We're going to have 9 of our Hill Country Rally cars, all dirty. I told them, do not clean them, on display. If you're curious, the show will come out Thursday. DM me. I'll give you a clue where it's at. I can't publicly say where it's at, but I can message you. But there's my rant on Hill Country Rally. We'll quickly go to
Fantastic.
questions if you're okay with that, guys. And some of them we already
Sure.
answered.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
so so why don't we go? I talked about Michelle Cowell. Maybe I'll post some of her quotes because they were fantastic. Um, We had another one from our friend Joshy Pearl. He does Target California and some of these other rallies with me. Dave's going to answer this one, but I'll just quickly read it. Supply and
Sure.
demand. There's so much value in a mid-year 911 or 911 SC. So that's 74 through 83 911s.
Hmm.
However, items like fuel distributors, warm-up regulators, Lambda ECUs, they need to be sent out for rebuilds. There aren't many shops in that line of work. Do you see younger people picking up the mantle and specializing in these 50-year-old CIS Bosch systems, which I think stands for continuous injection system?
Yep.
And they came out in 73 and a half and they went through 7 through 83. Or do you see CIS systems being pulled off these cars by you, the techs, and put in the archives of automobile history in the garage and replaced by electronic fuel injection systems like Motronic, individual throttle bodies? And then he says gratuitously, Shifted Opinions is the best podcast, period. And
Of course, we agree.
yeah,
We of course we agree with that thinking. I will tell you because we deal with it here. And just based on pure manufacturing numbers, right? When you look at the history of these G body cars and so on, 74 to 83, there's a lot of cars that were made. So there is a lot of CIS cars out there. And we, in fact, are training our techs. I've had two guys now in the shop, both guys in one guy in his 20s and one guy in his 30s. We are specifically training on dealing with all of the items that can go on with CIS because there are probably 6 or 7 different components that make up that system that it's basics are all there, right? The way the system works is I mean it's using tech that is obviously old and dated and so on. You've got a lot of vacuum returns, you've got advance for excuse me, for timing. You have also a fuel distribution head at the top of the motor that sends fuel constantly to each injector, and that's hence the concept of constant injection. But the bits and parts, what happens with these cars a lot as they start to fail, as there starts to be things that wear out on these 50 or 40-year-old cars, some mechanic will get in there not having the part, not having the knowledge, not knowing really where to go, and he'll diddle another screw or another adjustment and start to try to tune around whatever may be going on with that car. And so by the time we get it, and now you start sending out the bits and parts to fix them, whether it be a warm up regulator or a fuel distribution head for rebuild. And there's a few companies around the country that are still doing this. And, if anybody's interested in finding someone, please let us know, because I can put you in touch with somebody that rebuilds these fuel distribution heads, warm up regulators, and such. But if you are a young person right now getting into the mechanical field, you have any interest in Porsches, this is where to go. This is where, spend some time, learn these things because there's some really good guides out there on what to troubleshoot on all of this. Um, as I said, each of these bits, these 6 parts are kind of interdependent. And as they start to fail, you really have to start looking at each and every one of them to get your car dialed back in correctly. And we were and even the difference between a California emissions car all and a non-California emissions car, there's vacuum setups on those with the fuel with the air pumps and whatnot, where if you don't have those connected properly, you won't be able to get the car to
yep.
run correctly either cold start issue, hot start issue. It's problematic, but I do believe, gosh, that we will press on, and Sunderworks will certainly press on. We're not pulling that stuff off because I will tell you that even the current stuff, a Motec or a Link system or Haltech or any of the others that are, the EFI individual throttle body stuff, those are no picnic to get set up correctly either.
Yeah.
So, and then a lot of guys will just try to throw carbs on it. They'll throw some PMOs or they'll buy some other carbs and they'll try, it's no fun. Now I got 6 individual carburetors that have to be tuned and kept in. And so
You know,
CIS is not as bad as everybody thinks.
I specifically have an 86 Carrera for many reasons. Not my favorite motor. It's not the most dynamic, the most interesting. It's sort of like the best tool for the job I need it to do. Motronic is such an easier system to live with. My feeling, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dave and Casey, was a properly set up CIS system. It it wasn't mechanical fuel injection, but it was like, to me, I always felt like it was a more reliable, instead of a less reliable Motronic, a more reliable MFI. And it had some of the characteristics of the real snappy throttle response. And part of that might be the short stroke motor of the SC, and I think the mid years were short stroke compared to the long stroke. So they just felt like, regardless of what the horsepower and torque numbers said, the butt dynos said that they were peppier, quicker, um, just more fun. And I wonder if that was the CIS fuel injection system that was aiding to that kind of, butt
I'm
dyno
sure all
feel.
of it. It's all just, it's fuel and how fuel gets there and, but it's pressures, it's all of these little bits and parts, and it has to be set up right to run right and to get the most out of the car. But I will tell you, when they are, they're fantastic. They're just tons of fun to drive. So I certainly, we're not going to start gutting them off of cars. In fact, I'm pulling carbs off of a used car that I got, and we're going to put CIS back on it because I think that's just more original. Um, the car will probably be worth more as a result of getting it back, but when they're set up well, they run very, very nicely. So I like
Yep.
those cars a lot. And I
Yep.
think a good SC is a fantastic car.
I agree. So Josh, I know you got an SC. Just keep getting that system working
Carry
right.
on, buddy.
Don't get it wrong. Just really quick, we'll just read Silver Porsches on Instagram. He asked if anyone will be at Platica. Casey will be there, and a maybe from Dave, a no from me, but I do want to go. And stay tuned, Silver underscore Porsches, because we are going to have Shannon on the show before the event. Um, and then questions we already answered. Fi delighted on Instagram. He asked us about touching on the people and driving. We talked about getting ready for the rally, mechanically, packing, and all that. We can certainly answer more questions about that. But he said, could you touch on the people and driving aspects, thinking etiquette, like using turnouts, driving within your limits, among other things? He also asked about difference between Amelia and Pebble Beach. We kind of talked about that. I think they're different things that have some similarities. But Casey, um, on rallies and drives, is there anything? I have some really strong opinions, but I'll talk about those in a second. Do you have any opinions for Phi Delighted on driving etiquette on these events?
Just driving etiquette in general, right?
Mhm.
Don't be an
Forget the rallies,
asshole.
but
Yeah, don't be an
yes,
asshole. Don't cut people off. Don't follow too closely. And absolutely drive within your limits.
And one of the key things that we use as a group, and we've gotten so good at it, that when we invite someone new into our group, like this 22 car train going out to Texas, I'd say 75% of them were really comfortable using a walkie-talkie. And we really, by the end of it, we got the other 25% on board. We have gone through so many different walkie-talkies. We use one that doesn't play well with others. It's a Samcom, but it's really good. Like those little cheesy Motorola ones. I'm sorry, all it sounds like in an air-cooled car is cheeseburger, and you don't hear crap. So we actually have gone. One of the guys in our group, his girlfriend is in production and recommended these. He's a ski guy. He used them. His name's Nick. So we end up using these Samcom radios. We have codes for using the radios, and when you get it, like for instance, we use Camaro for a cop, but the train of cars could get a mile long or longer. So we've trained that whoever first says something, and we don't do a lot of chit chat. It's like deer, pedestrian on the right, cyclist on the left. If you're on a twisty road, oncoming, especially when there's a, imagine coming around the corner and there's a big rig, which often can take up more than its lane, or someone, or just traffic that's coming over the yellow line. The first person says oncoming traffic over the yellow line. Then, five cars down, they repeat the message and it passes down. Um, the biggest thing I see is when you're coming up to a turn. And by the way, the other component to this is we're using a mapping program. So you can see that there's a mile till we're going to make a right hander. So no use, even if it's a legal place to pass a car, no use making a pass. What do you do? Pass them and then just cut them off? So having wherewithal of not just following, like Casey said, on someone's bumper and doing whatever they do, which by the way, when they crash, you crash too. You're giving distance, you're using a map, we've got communication, and as a result, we have a safer space and we have less incidents. So I would say Fi Delighted, when you're going on these rallies, I know he's new to it and he's going to do the Driving While Awesome rally coming up. Really get used to and have your friends use radios to communicate that stuff. I have seen several cases where people have actually died on a rally that would have been solved with a map and or radio, period. I'm a huge believer of that. And don't just say, I'm going to follow the guy in front of me. Everyone does that because they're lazy as fuck. I'm sorry. Like, we're all smart people. The night
Terrible.
before,
And have
look
the
at the
radio,
map.
for God's sakes.
You have a
Get the
radio,
radio
look at,
and
but you have the route
yeah,
book. Just don't be lazy. Look at it before.
you're
You look on your phone and Google Maps. There's something that's weird. I'll look at Street View and just go like, what the hell is that turn? And then I'll see, and here's what I do on a rally where they just give you the route book. And I've done this with Driving While Awesome. I'll go that night and plot it in Google Maps. And it's just like anything else. When I plot it myself, I get muscle memory. I'm like, oh yeah, that's that weird turn that's almost like a button hook. And so when and at that turn, I'll street view it and I'll go like, there's like a funky gas station, like an old dilapidated gas station there, and start having muscle memory. So when you're out there driving, you know, get your eyes up. Don't look at the bumper in front of you. Just like doing track events, see what's happening. See the cars in front of you braking, because there is a nasty accordion effect. And what happens is the guys at the back, they come hauling up, and I have seen so many cars, and I've been involved where in boom 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 where we've ricocheted and all run into you. You saw Dave with your clients going to the
yeah,
rally. It
yeah.
just and it happened so fast. And on this rally, we had one little incident where two cars kissed, and between better radio, better map, it could have been avoided. Unfortunately, no one hurt and just a little bent metal. So
Oh yeah. Well, we all said little bit
I'm
metal kind of.
passionate about being equipped for communicating and understanding where the hell you're going and stop following the bumper in front of you.
I will offer another little tip of mine as well. And as we do these rallies, most of the ones that I'm going on, and I'm sure most as well now, end up with a GPX file. Somebody has plotted the map. They also give you the book, right? So you're getting a map. It's hard to read a map while you're driving, obviously. So, but the GPX file that's now part of a app like Rever or one of the other ones that you're using, a lot of the cyclists use those. Motorcycle guys use those to
Mhm.
ride around. But even if I'm not on a GPX file, just having a regular Google map up on my phone next to me, even if I'm just following. Now, I'm always on a walkie talkie, I'm always on a GPX file. But if for some reason I lose the GPX file, you're moving along at a pretty good pace a lot of times. And what you're really trying to understand is just like a rally driver, what's how extensive is this turn? Is this turn a 90 degree? Is it 15 degrees? Do I need to slow down to make this turn? And when you see it, even just coming up ahead of you, just that little glance over in your peripheral vision, you know the degree of the turn. You kind of get a sense for what's coming. You may not know from the GPX file, but you're looking and seeing it on the map and you're knowing, okay, I'm going to need to slow down here.
And
And
and one of the cool things that and it's so funny because every once in a while, because we're often in places with no cell signal. You lose your map, you're SOL. And so my dad right here, you can see he's right now getting his sextant out
checking
and
the sun.
navigating by the sun and the stars. Um, he loves his paper maps. And what he loves more than his paper maps is blowing the minds of millennials when he pulls his paper maps out and shows them the route because we have no GPS. So he goes to AAA. If you're a AAA member, he gets all the free maps of the local area and he highlights them the night before the route. They're all highlighted. Imagine I am booking through some crazy ass road, doing jumps and dirt and whatever, and he's sitting there in the passenger seat and my God, he is the expert at folding a map. He's so proud because he shows me how at speed he can fold the map properly. And we end up in a place where we've had it happen where the road we're supposed to go on is closed. It's gone, whatever. And there's no cell reception. And there's my dad on the hood of the car, all of his paper maps, and a crowd around him. I wish I had a picture, just minds being blown. And he's like, look,
That is
this is
so
this.
awesome.
And so it sounds stupid, but go to AAA, get your free paper map, have a few of them. You can buy an atlas in the area. There's even some off-road maps that you can get because sometimes you know, these
See if you can
things
see if
don't
you
work.
see if you can actually go to the AAA and find somebody that'll make you a triptych. If you remember what
Oh
those
yeah.
were, it was like the bound flip pages or whatever that
Yeah, they would
precursor to digital maps for sure.
tell you, you'd ask them where they're going, and they would actually highlight it for you. But the
Right.
problem is they speak interstate, we speak rally, so it doesn't
Yes.
really help. Just moving along really quick. Rick Navarro, um, he was really attracted to our Hill Country Rally, and he asked what was the one highlight from Amelia Island or car that stood out? I think one of you mentioned Radwood, Casey. You loved Radwood.
Yeah,
No
the
surprise.
car behind me took the cake. It was unfortunately I did not queue up a better picture, but it's a guy
It's
named
the
Brant.
it's a trigger picture. It's a
It
picture of a
is.
freaking three-piece speed line vomit in my mouth wheel.
So, a guy named Brant that I got to meet, really good dude, from northeastern Ohio. It's a 964 Cup car, and this one had speed lines on it from its Super Cup years, but it was awesome. It was done. Rob Powell, if you're familiar, who designed the Rothmans cars in period back in the 1980s, worked with another guy that I know, Central City Graphics, the guy that did my buddy Malcolm's 962. But he basically redid the original livery that was on the car, and it looked awesome. It just checked all the boxes, and the livery was killer. And I think it won something at Works Reunion. I think it won Raddest Import at Radwood as well. It was an awesome, hard to beat 964 race cars,
Yeah.
especially when they have speed lines on them.
And well,
Yeah.
and they're liveried up, and they
Yeah.
look like race cars, and all that cool stuff. That was a neat car, and I had my meta glasses on, right? So that's one of the things for me when I'm walking around at these events now is makes it so much easier just to reach up and go click, 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 of all the cool cars. Because otherwise, when you're standing there with your phone, you're fumbling around sometimes trying to get the pictures and whatnot. I wish I had more up here, but I will tell you that car was pretty cool, Casey. And then next to it, there was a cup. What else was next to it? There was the weird
Oh, it was
some.
a fake 959 Rothmans car. I think it was based on like an SC or some sort of G body. But I tell you, if you didn't know it was fake, I don't think you'd know. It looked
It was
really
a pretty
good.
good copy. It really
Yeah.
was. It was a pretty cool copy. And then there was
Yeah.
this really weird triangle shaped thing, right? That car that was like,
Oh, the Shelby race car.
yes, yes.
Yeah, that was cool too. Yeah, the Radwood show. I mean, golly, that I hope I texted Lane. I said, "Gosh, I hope they paid you guys $1 billion for this." Because God, seeing the amount of passion and excitement around that far exceeded the people looking at the stuffy old Ferraris and Auburns and stuff over at the Concours. It just wasn't even close. It's awesome.
Yeah, the people that dress up, they're in their cool Radwood stuff. There was a
Mhm.
whole pile of 928s there, Paul. I mean, those were like
Ooh,
they had
yeah.
six or seven of those
All
that were all
broken
lined up.
down. Couldn't
Yep.
move. All the
Yeah,
fuses
no,
were blown for the left turn signal.
they were pristine, Casey. Those were beautiful 928s there. They were lovely. Don't you be
Uh,
hating on those 928s, Casey.
I
I got
I
to get you in one.
yeah, it's one of those cars that once you've driven a good one, it's not dynamic, it's not a 911, but my God,
It's just different. It's fun.
it's
They're
different and
great.
they were ahead of their time. Just let's see, wrapping up. I think we hit most of the questions. The last one was from my friend Michael, P911R on Instagram. I got to hang out with him at Hill Country Rally, and he said, how do you find out about all these rallies, and how do you choose which rally? And what I ended up doing, let me pull up my notes, and hopefully we'll be able to post. Um, we're going to be able to post all the different links to the rallies. Um, these are rallies. Some of them I've done. Driving While Awesome, and you can go to their website. There's Overcrest. Uh, there's Target California, Target Carolina Ruckus Rally, Open Range Rally. That's all kind of the same person. California Melee, which is kind of a bougie 57 and older. It's expensive. I don't know, 10 to 20 grand. And then there's the California Melee, Melee, which is the budget version, which is probably under $1,000 or less. There's the Colorado Grand, which is also a 57 a year requirement, kind of like the California Mille. There's the Copper State 1000, which the year pushes a little newer. You can get into the 70s, but also of the California Mille, Colorado Grand, and Copper State, it's the least expensive of what I call the bougie events. And these are like first class events. Tied into that is Road and Track. Matt Farah does those. Um, and Road and Track is kind of great for you want a really high class event, but for any car. You could bring a new GTI, you could bring a new Ferrari, you could bring an old car. They are premium events, expensive, but first class. And uh, we have a shipper at our shop trying to unload a car that has no key. There's also the snowball rally, fault line rally, mother load rally, kind of like similar to the California Malay. I've been on the snowball rally. These are going to be, the epitome of fix it while you drive it, slow car fast. Not a lot. If you have an air cooled 911, you're going to have a hard time getting in. If you have an MG Sprite or a Renault or a Citroen, that's the speed. They are that rally. You go into the parking lot, there's drinking, and every freaking car there is on a lift, is on jack stands, and it's just part of the thing. They love fixing. There is literally a rally that's dedicated to people fixing their cars along the way. So PCA
That's the
has their
Ruclos
own,
rally, the
yeah,
Ruclos rally.
Ruthless rally
Yeah,
that's in the Midwest.
yeah. Well,
So
that's
for
actually
me, it's a combination of how much you want to spend, where you want to go, and what you want to drive. And don't preclude your decision on what you think the environment will be like because it will surprise you. For me, I have I always recommend for people in the Southwest or California, Target, California is a great start. It's a 3 day, 4 day rally. It's Central California. There's a wide mix of people. It's a big event. There's a lot of people. You'll find your people. And you could come solo without a map, I mean, without a co-driver, without a friend group, and you will end up with a friend group. And that is a great intro. And then what happens is you do this long enough, we now have our own little group of friends that do our crazy 10-day rallies. It's stuff that's limited to 25 cars, but they're people we know. It's literally like we're going on our own vacation together. And we have one of those coming up at the end of April where we're going to do a 10-day rally at the four corners of, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona. So there, yeah, I think Dave mentioned you have what are your
you got
rallies back
GT
east?
Smokies that's coming up. So I mean, there's something for everybody, Paul. And one, so, but this is a good question for Casey, I think, because Casey's not been a rally guy so much, right? I mean, that's just career wise or whatever. It's not something you've done much, but I think you want to do it. So when you think about is there an apprehension? Is it just not knowing who to call, or is it just work life and everything else gets in the way?
The latter. I've got a lot of interesting that you guys are familiar with interesting complications right now occurring in life that preclude me from going away kind of where I'm off the grid for more than 24 hours. So someday that
Yeah,
will be different. And then when that occurs, or if I have got a little bit more of a grasp on things, I certainly am interested in doing it. A really good friend of mine is interested in doing one of the road and track ones this fall. I don't know if that will be in the cards, but I believe I've been offered a seat if I wanted to go. And I'm not sure what we'd take, some sort of Radwood or sorry, Emo Wood era Ferrari, which would be interesting. But we'll I don't know, when it gets closer, we'll figure it out.
well,
Yep.
I will say that I'm sure that there's plenty of guys. We're obviously pretty Porsche centric. So most of what Paul's mentioned, certainly all the ones I've mentioned are all Porsche centric stuff, air cooled specifically, but some of the newer ones like GT Smokies, you must have a modern GT car to participate. So you can imagine there's a track day involved. Speeds are going to be substantially different. But the one thing I would say to people that are contemplating getting involved, best group of friends you'll ever meet, without a doubt. You bond around the coolest stuff, the things you see, the issues that you've had with your car, the shit that comes flying off and hits the other car behind you or whatever, all that kind of stuff. But there's always, like Paul was saying, there's something for everyone. And if you get worried about speed, and that's how I think what intimidates a lot of people because they think this thing is all just about driving 100 miles an hour on, like little backcountry roads. And it's not. There's all kinds of groups in these rallies, and you just fall into the speed that you're comfortable with. There's never any judgment about it. Your
Nope.
car may not be capable. If you're running with 993s and you got an SC, you may not be able to keep up, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's okay. Just be at the back. And that's the other thing. You can be, you want to improve your skills and maybe run with a slightly faster group that's taking corners a little bit more aggressively, a little bit more with speed. You can track their lines, you can kind of see where their break points are and all that sort of stuff. Just be at the back. Because one of the things in rally etiquette is you don't want to be the slow guy in the middle of a 10 car chain that's holding up 4 cars behind you. You
Yep.
want, if you're going to be the slow guy, let's acknowledge it. It's cool. It's not a big deal. Everybody understands that. You may not be as comfortable. Roll to the back. And then,
And
people will wait for you and catch up.
to echo along with that, Dave, I think what will happen is the group will appreciate that you're a cooperative driver. Because remember, we are on public roads. We do have to obey public laws of, the laws of the road. I always tell people we call it rallies. It's just an easy vernacular, but to the layman, I call it a tour. We're taking a vintage car tour. All the events I do, except Hill Country Rally, are mixed vehicles, and in fact, there is a lot of Porsches and especially 911s because, frustratingly, as much as you may hate them, they are damn good at the job. They are
They
really, really good at it. And all, even my friend Steve, who finally, he'd take Alphas and Launchas and all these crazy old cars. He finally bought an air cooled, 73 RS clone 911, and he's like, I am so annoyed that this car is so damn good and so entertaining that I want to drive it everywhere. So I would say most of the events I do are mixed. They're about 50% 911s. I try to drive other than 911s on different events. I switch back and forth with a 944 because it was an inexpensive option. I'll take a 928. I might even do a 3 day quick little local event in my 66 BMW 1600. So I wanted to just kind of wrap up the show with, kind of echoing what Michelle Cowell said, which was sort of heartfelt, this sentimental thing that, oh, this is why you do what you do when you go on these events. And one of the guys, he was a passenger the whole time with his brother-in-law. He did the whole drive out to to Texas from California. And his name's Dave Harris, and he sent me a message, and he said, "quote Life gets quiet again," referring to rallies, not because the world stopped, because you finally did. And for me, if you're in this business and or any business, especially if you own your own business, it becomes a 24-hour thing. And Casey, I know you are in the throngs of it. I was where you were 10, 15 years ago. And you will see a little tiny light that will let you squeeze in a tour, an event. It may be a 2 day event, it may be a 3 day event. And I think for you and a lot of people out there, it's really hard to turn the noise off. And we need to do it as humans. These people disconnect from social media. Well, sometimes you just have to disconnect from everything. And I think this is, for me, these events I do, I thrive on them. They help with everything. So if you haven't tried it and you like old cars, please, you know,
Look one up.
please, yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
find one. Ping us. Ping one of us. We'll help get you in. Sometimes they're invitation, sometimes, but it's the just the greatest culture. And I mean, I feel like our podcast here, we're obviously trying to promote this as well, trying to, just increase the universe of cool car people and events and fun times and memories. So I'm all about this, and we'll keep talking about rallies for sure, and we'll get Casey out for a weekend, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait. I really can't wait for the three of us to be doing this. So on that note, thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate it. Please go to whatever platform you listen to. Would love a 5-star review. Would love for you to just write something nice. If you have a problem with us, leave it on a different show,
Keep it to
not
yourself.
ours. And stay tuned for next week. We'll have a few really cool surprises in store for you. So thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.